and we are live. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule today, and I want to thank our illustrious special guest that we have calling in today on Off the Record, our great attorney and lawyer, Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, doing very fine, Brother Joshua. It's my honor to be on with you and your listening audience.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, the first thing that we wanted to say is, first of all, thank you for your sacrifice for all of these years by being on the front line on so many cases and so many just in history. But I would like to ask you, how did you first get introduced into your line of work and into activism? When did that happen?
I got introduced into my line of work in activism, and part of this is detailed in my upcoming book on the biography of Khalid Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
It was on the campus of Howard University, the mecca of Black education, in the mid-1980s, around 1985. When I came to Howard University is when I got woke up into the Black conscious struggle. I was introduced to Minister Malcolm X. I was introduced to the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, and I was taught by some of the strongest revolutionary professors in the nation at Howard University. And I must say that around 1986, my grandfather, a longtime Nation of Islam member, Thomas X, since 1955, he in 1986 gave me 5 tapes that changed my life. There were 4 tapes from Minister Louis Farrakhan and 1 tape from a bold, bald-headed black man, Khalid Muhammad. And that's what got me on the road to consciousness, activism, and to where I am today.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Yes, sir. And speaking of your book, what is the title of it one more time so we can prepare to get ready to read it?
It's the Book of Khalid. It is the Book of Khalid, and it is the biography of Khalid Abdul Muhammad. As I've detailed from my research on him and also my personal experiences serving him for 13 years.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. Now, I have admired Dr. Khalid since I was a child, but it's only been from the interactions that I've had with him. I was very young, but from seeing his lectures on YouTube and seeing his tapes, is there a personal side that you would like to share with us that you have seen from him that people may not know the other side of him when he's not speaking? Could you share with some of those what that was like working with him, just like on the personal side of it?
Sure. I found him to be a sensitive and a caring man. He is known to be a hardliner on the rostrum, and he is a hardliner when it comes to revolution and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. However, I also know that Khalid Muhammad, that when I was running for city council in Ward 8, Washington, D.C., 1995, he came and he did a campaign speech for me. I also, that touched me. I was shocked, actually. When I passed the bar exam, he sent me a bag. He bought me my first legal bag, and it had the goddess Mayat and the scales of justice on it. And he paid close attention to details. He was a sensitive man. One of his love interests and wives, he had the roses. Every day he would get her a fresh dozen roses every day.
Yes, sir.
So he's a complex man because he's stern, he's disciplined. I never saw him out of dress. I never saw him in a set of tennis shoes. He was serious a lot, but then he was sensitive a lot. Sit me down and cook me some food and cook some fish for me and serve me a meal. So he was I would just say personally for him, everything he did, whether it was personal care or liberation or revolution, he strived to take it to a higher level. He was serious about everything. He wasn't average at nothing.
Yes, sir. That's wonderful. Okay, I just want to say, read some of the comments. Walaikum salam, Mimi. Praise to brother Marcellus. Thank you all for watching. I thank you all for watching. Yes, sir. Now with Dr. Khalid, I've never heard. Well, I've heard rumors like just based off the comments on YouTube, but I've never heard you say like he brought roses to his love interest and his wife. I can't believe I never heard of him in a romantic side, like how you just described him. How important was that side? Did you think to help balance him out because he was so strong in the work?
Every black man, every revolutionary needs a queen and a goddess to help balance out his work.
Yes, sir.
As great as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is, those who know and are listening know how important that his wife Khadijah has been to him, his mission, his state of mind, and certainly to his family and his children. And so I don't get into it heavily into the book, but I do get into some of it because I get into some of it because Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad was loved by black women.
Yes, sir.
And he loved him some. Loved him some black women. And
yes, sir.
Yes, he did, and he had a couple of marriages, and he was married at the time of his passing. And time of his passing, and you know, these relations that he had were subjects in his life. They were subjects and of subjects of strength at different times, also subjects of tension at different times.
Yes, sir.
You know. And I won't go too much into it on this phone line, but I will cover some of it in the book because it's important to understand his life and his wives.
Yes, sir. Well, Brother Malik, I am an aspiring actor who's done a lot of plays in theater, and one of the things that I've always hoped to see is a film done on Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Do you think that that's something that will ever come into fruition?
I believe that the book of Khalid, this book that I'm working on,
yes,
and
sir.
also other books from Chairman Hashim Nzinga that he's working on, Missing a Friend and others, as he and I are very close.
Yes, sir.
Two of his students. Yes, I do firmly believe that that my book and these books are a basis for a very enlightening and exciting movie. You know, I mean, this book, the book that I'm editing right now over the next few months to deliver to you all, to me is action-packed.
Yes,
I mean, a lot crossed the life of Khalid Abdul Muhammad. You have, you have one story that's never been told. We really haven't been told the subject of the reign of Wallace Muhammad. You know, we at least in books and maybe in part in film, we've seen a lot about the nation and Malcolm, but we rarely or ever seen anything about the time and the reign of Wallace Muhammad. And certainly a subject of interest here is the rise of Farrakhan, as I call it, Farrakhan and Khalid, rebuilding the nation.
Yes, sir.
And so coming across the path of the course of the history here is Jesse Jackson here, and the rise of Jesse Jackson and his campaign, and the big controversy between Minister Louis Farrakhan and the man he was campaigning for, Reverend Jackson, and the man who was the supreme captain and keeping the soldiers in line when Farrakhan, when Jesse came under attack and Farrakhan came under attack for defending Jesse. Town and all of that. Yeah, all of that is movie material. Because if you look, if you saw the movie Jasper, Texas, the HBO movie Jasper, Texas, you see Khalid Muhammad portrayed by Bokeem Woodwind in that book. And that was a major subject that covered Khalid Muhammad for that HBO movie, and that was just one big maneuver in his life.
Yes, sir.
You know, there's another one could be made on the big clash between us and him and Rudy Giuliani.
Yes, sir.
In New York for the Million Youth March and the big battle royale we had and the fight with the police. You know, here you have Khalid Muhammad, like Malcolm in the movie Malcolm X by Spike Lee, embroiled in a controversy, being suspended by his leader and teacher. And the question is put on the table: can he take it? How did he take it? How did he make it? Khalid Muhammad was shot in Riverside, May 29th, 1994. Well, who shot him? Who is James Best?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? These are, I don't want to go on, but I'm just answering your question by saying, brother, there's a tremendously amount of informative, very important, and exciting material in this book, and I'm sure that it'll make the film screen one day, one way or another.
Excellent. I did not want to mean to cut you off, but I have to stop right there on that May 22nd, 1994, the Riverside shooting.
May 29th.
May 29th Riverside shooting situation. Were you there, and how did you feel about how did you feel about that situation? Do you think this was like outside, or like what were your feelings on that situation, and what was Dr. Khalid's feelings about that situation as well?
Well, brother, you know, that could be a whole show, but I'll try to lay the backdrop for it by this. I think what you want to see is, the question we want to ask is, why would Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad be a candidate for assassination? And then you'd have to trace that back a few months earlier to Khalid Muhammad's suspension, you know, and then you'd have to have some backdrop information on why Khalid Muhammad was suspended. What was his reaction to being suspended? What did he do after being suspended? Now I'll get to it in a short paragraph here, because it's certainly a deep subject. But I'll say this. Khalid Abdul Muhammad reached his peak in the Nation of Islam as a spokesman or representative for Minister Louis Farrakhan, in my judgment, shortly after the Spike Lee movie, Malcolm X. And at that time, in early 1993, he had reached his zenith. As a matter of fact, in my spiritual development at that time, I called him the baby Christ. Because after have been with him so long and watching how crisp and cold and professional and masterful he was, and seeing him growing and developing at the age of 45 years old, I saw nobody else other than the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and really ain't seen nobody since, that can match the God power in this man. Now, he ended up being caught in a situation where he was suspended for his speech at King College in November of 1993, speaking pretty much as he typically spoke around the country for most of his career.
Yes, sir.
Now, I have a chapter in my book. Which is taken from a subject that Minister Louis Farrakhan introduced, and Khalid Muhammad also introduced in the summer of 1993. And that subject is, and the title of this chapter is, has Farrakhan changed direction? Because that was the question on the table after that movie came out and going into the summer of 93. What happened? So anyway, you have to look into this subject, and then Khalid Muhammad gets suspended, and Minister Farrakhan suspends him for speaking in a way that was not in the representation of him. To summarize that, he did not like the way Khalid Muhammad had been representing him, but also this comes in the backdrop of a major Anti-Defamation League campaign, a major press campaign, a major jumping out there by Jesse Jackson, even Reverend Ben Chavis, Congressional Black Caucus. So you got Minister Farrakhan going one way, you got Khalid Muhammad going another way, you got a speech given at King College, you got Khalid Muhammad getting suspended, then you got Khalid Muhammad continuing, even though he's suspended, you got him continuing to speak.
Yes, sir.
And as he continues to speak, and I'm a prime witness to this, even though he's suspended, he's growing in power and influence. He's growing even in refinement, which really, to be honest, if we're going to talk about this a little bit, that's not really supposed to happen in the Nation of Islam.
Yes,
when you are suspended, according to my reading of the history, you are a spiritual persona non grata, meaning that when you busted like that, you're not supposed to be rising once God's man has suspended you.
Yes,
I mean, that's just how I read NOI history.
Yes,
okay, so Khalid Muhammad is packing arenas, it'll be in the book. He's packing arenas. He's growing. He's at Howard University with me. He's live on C-SPAN. He's growing. He's live at that Black Holocaust, Howard University. National broadcast, C-SPAN, standing room only, 1,000 on the outside. He's using books and references, and he's growing. Part of the time he's in this position, he's trying his best to obey Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes,
I mean, he's struggling with it. He's toning down his speech. And I mean, he's trying to work with the instructions he was busted by. Man, I ain't trying to go on too long, nor tell my whole book, but you didn't. Anyway, this may be one of the few interviews I do before it comes out, so I might as well drop some of this now.
Please.
Because I'm getting to answering your question of why somebody would want to take a shot at it. Yes, what I'm trying to tell you is that throughout the man's history, there was jealousy, envy, and hatred for him amongst some officials inside of the Nation of Islam. I'm not speaking of Minister Farrakhan, the leader, at all, but some.
Yes, sir.
On the other hand, he was fervent by believers. At some point, it was believed that he was harming Minister Louis Farrakhan's mission. And so James Edward Best is also a staunch follower of Minister Farrakhan. He was the minister for the Nation of Islam in Seattle. And James Best he's a universalist. James Best, according to his own statements, he's an integrationist. James Best is for the redemption of all people. He has some kind of church, and he's also mentally ill. And he's also subject to other people telling him that Khalid Muhammad is an enemy to Louis Farrakhan,
Yes, sir.
You know, and so therefore you get a situation where Khalid Muhammad is growing in popularity, but he's also reads some headlines certain days when it says Muhammad's speech. As soon as he was speaking after he was suspended, it say Khalid Muhammad's speech was mild. Khalid Muhammad toned down, and I was with Khalid Muhammad when he didn't like that, because reading them headlines, because Khalid Muhammad had an intrinsic fear of Wallace Muhammad, somebody getting to a prominent position and taking a weaker position. Anyway, Khalid Muhammad started getting real strong in his teaching around the Black Holocaust time.
Yes, sir.
Khalid Muhammad reached a zenith in his life when he went on Phil Donahue after Howard University, and he destroyed Phil Donahue. He defended the speech excellently that everybody had condemned, and I here to contend to you that he reached the height of his career, or a certain height in his career, right before his assassination attempt.
Yes, sir.
And the assassination attempt was an attempt to stop the rise of Khalid Abdul Muhammad, to kill Khalid Muhammad. And it almost worked, but certainly, as I record, it killed his momentum at the time. And so you got all kind of factors in here. Some of them similar to Minister Malcolm X. 30 years later he's suspended. 30 years later they shot and killed Malcolm X, but it's tried to be killed by Khalid Muhammad. Yes, tried to kill Khalid Muhammad. It's a whole big thing, brother, and it's something that it's just a lot of lessons to be learned from it. I delayed for many years trying to go back into this. It may have been even due to trauma and the drama of it. But now that I put my mind on it for some months, it's a hell of a history, and I'm still processing in this second what it all means.
Great. Okay, that's excellent, sir. And comments, I'm coming to you all, but I'm just trying to keep Brother Malik on this subject while we got you. I wanted to stay on this question.
Yeah.
How did you feel seeing Dr. Khalid? Because I saw a speech on YouTube. I think if it's a speech on YouTube that he gave, I'm pretty sure I've watched them. And I watched the speech where he said that he was aware that he was 30 years after Malcolm X, and he was trying to beat the prophecy of what happened. How did you feel seeing him go through this? And what steps was he taking to make sure that he wasn't assassinated, or that he didn't split from his teacher?
Woo! These are pregnant questions, brother. But all I can say, man, you're asking some. I knew I was gonna get into it, but I would say this. Khalid Muhammad. It was a very, very difficult struggle. And it was one thing for him to say that I will not do as Minister Malcolm X did and walk the path of Malcolm X. It's one thing to say it, and then it's another thing to walk that path and to have to deal with the ramifications of walking that path. And to deal with the struggle and walking the path, because ultimately Khalid Muhammad had a big problem with this is a story about his struggle of his own consciousness and conviction. Khalid Muhammad is a man of deep conviction and consciousness, and so therefore and he's a man also of fervent love for his leader. And so he runs into a situation in his life where he has to wrestle with his core convictions and his core love for his leader, yes, and to try to avoid what happened with Minister Malcolm X. And so I saw him, and so let's just look at this one point here. Khalid Muhammad, before he was tried to be assassinated, he was not out there. He was not trashing Minister Louis Farrakhan. He was not doing anything directly adverse to Minister Louis Farrakhan, other than he was just getting too big. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's merely getting too big and too strong. And so, Khalid Muhammad is ultimately shot, to me, by a man who has a mental illness, but he also is an ideologue, and he sees Khalid Muhammad a threat to the quote-unquote universal path that Minister Farrakhan was seeking at that time. Minister Farrakhan, according to his statements and his followers, who say that all of his steps are divinely guided at all times, was moving in a certain direction on his way to his Million-Man March, and so Khalid Muhammad gets to Phil Donahue. He gets to a point where it is perceived that he is presenting a threat to Minister Farrakhan's agenda, although he's not saying anything about Minister Farrakhan, actually supporting Minister Farrakhan,
Yes, sir.
but yet he's still preaching this radical black nationalism, and he's defending it effectively in front of Donahue. He's packing audiences arena all over the country. And
Yes,
so here comes James Best, supposedly an ex-Nation of Islam minister, with his 9mm, and shoots Khalid Muhammad and 2 of his bodyguards at the University of Riverside. And Hashim Zinzinga was there on the scene. Luckily he wasn't injured. But you know, that you know, on one hand, that brought about a harsh feelings. That brought about a test for Khalid Muhammad, because on one hand, in the Nation of Islam and on Minister Farrakhan's side, they were saying that he didn't win and got shot. This is more trouble he's causing. You know, on Khalid Muhammad's side, he's saying, well, you know, I'm not doing anything wrong, and the Nation of Islam has reduced their security, and here's one of their members that might be tied to another one of their members.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, I'm going to get into it on this show, but it's a story behind James Best. James Best didn't act alone. There were some people talking to James Best. Anyway, it's a lot of stuff, but I tell you one thing, it's a message in it, and it's a moral in it, no matter what side you stand on. I better take some questions quick. I can't get into too long, but it's a hell of a
Yes,
subject.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, and thank you for your patience. My sister Mimi, I'm glad you asked that, because I was just about to ask that. What role, if any, do you think that COINTELPRO and the federal government played in the shooting of Brother Khalid Muhammad and his relationship with the NOI?
That is a good question, and in our book, in my book, I detail the consistent and persistent efforts of the Anti-Defamation League, who I detail and directly link to the police departments of America as having a great role in the attack on black leadership, a great role in the attack on Minister Louis Farrakhan, and certainly a prominent role in the split between Minister Khalid Muhammad and Minister Louis Farrakhan, even to the point that at Khalid Muhammad's speech at the University of Riverside, the Anti-Defamation League and their regional leaders met with the University of Riverside officials and forced them to reduce security at the event. Now we haven't found, it has been alleged that James Best, who was a former Seattle minister, James Best strongly pretends that he never was released by Farrakhan, and he's always been Farrakhan's man, but now that's not what Minister Wazir Muhammad at the time, the West Regional Minister of the Nation of Islam and Khalid Muhammad's mentor, said. The Anti-Defamation League is heavy at work at exacerbating the situation all the time, and even directly, in this instance, working with the security, you know, at the university. And so all the while you see Abraham Foxman and them going to work to attack Minister Farrakhan at every direction. Now, one thing can certainly be stated, that no matter which direction Minister Louis Farrakhan leaned to in his mission around these times, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, whichever way he leaned, the Anti-Defamation League didn't like it, and they didn't, and they attacked it at every turn. And so they jumped in and attacked Khalid Muhammad's speech. And by the time this speech is on the news every day, by the time it's on CNN every day, by the time you know, it's being taken out of context, because I personally think his King College speech is a brilliant speech, but by the time they get through pulling excerpts out of it and then putting it in front of Jesse Jackson, and he runs out with his news conference, Ben Chavis, he runs out first, because, you know, he was already halfway hating on Minister Farrakhan anyway.
Yes, sir.
You know, it was some things that went on the year before. Minister Farrakhan was at the Congressional Black Caucus big Congressional Black Caucus convention ahead of the 30-year March on Washington and Kwesi Mfume was the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, he pledged a quote unquote sacred covenant with the Nation of Islam and also the NAACP when Ben Chavis was the head of, and they said that the Black Caucus was going to back the Nation of Islam and back the NAACP. And the Nation of Islam had been doing good work in the housing areas like the dope busters and other areas. And so ADLs plotted to break up everything. They was gonna break up what Farrakhan was gonna do, or they was gonna break up what Khalid Muhammad was doing on the college campus, and at every chance they're inflaming the situation. Now I don't find any evidence that James Best was a FBI agent or informant. FBI agent or informant. I haven't found that yet. So you're kind of getting into a situation more so of zealotry or insanity. You know what I mean? A person with a mental illness who is a zealot, and if he convinces himself, and somebody can convince him, or through his own processes determines that a Khalid Muhammad is quote unquote undermining Minister Farrakhan, then here you have it. You know, even though Khalid Muhammad is nowhere near out there like Malcolm X, he's not out there going, you know, Minister Louis Farrakhan and his wives. He's not doing anything. I mean, pardon me. Malcolm X was out there saying Elijah Muhammad and his teenage secretaries. Elijah Muhammad, that whipped the Muslims up. Well, Khalid Muhammad was nowhere near that. He was backing Farrakhan, and at the same time teaching what was in his core consciousness and conviction. He got attempted to be assassinated because he was getting too strong.
Yes, sir.
And so once he was shot and all of that, after that, the plan did partially work because it was the Audubon ballroom effect. People were scared for a while to come around Khalid Muhammad. The nation thought that he was either making trouble or some of their men would get shot. So he ends up without security, and he ends up, by God's grace, in the hands of the new Black Panther Party through the aid of Hashim and Zinga, and he takes up armed defense at this point.
Yes, sir.
So, brother, I mean, I can't recite my whole book on this show, but I mean, I'll try to answer a couple more questions and just drop a few answers, and then that'll just be it. But it's a hell of a subject, you know, and it's a subject that even if we don't all agree on, you know, some people love Khalid or they disagree with Khalid. Some people say he's a hero. Some people say he's a hypocrite. Some people say Minister Farrakhan was right. Some people say Farrakhan did him wrong. Whatever it is, and for y'all who are listening to the voice on the sound of this show, if you don't hear me again before this book comes out, I want you to be patient and be calm and reason with what is said and reason with what is written, and don't take hearsay. Just listen to what I'm saying and read what I write and judge it for yourself as Allah gives it to you. And that's why I think that we can make it through it, because it's a subject that we got to address. It's got to come out. And even if you don't agree with everything I conclude, I say it's a very valuable lesson for everybody in our population, and particularly the believers in the Nation of Islam. It's a valuable study for all of us.
Absolutely, sir. And I thank you again for coming on. And I thank you. I see your comments. I thank you all for watching. Brother Malik, I am a history major in college, but also in the Nation of Islam. I like to study the history of many organizations, but especially the nation. How can future leaders try to work on not letting our ego or pride, or how would you advise future leaders on learning from this situation and coming out in the best spirit, as opposed to learning like, oh, I'm just not going to be like that? How can we learn? How can we learn to avoid some of the things that happened with the Dr. Khalid situation?
I would say I'd be best able to answer that question in a couple months as I finish the book, because I myself I'm kind of like I'm part of the answer myself. You know, Khalid Muhammad passed, and then I had my own relationship with Minister Louis Farrakhan. As a matter of fact, part of the story in my book is even my sub struggle with Khalid Muhammad over Minister Louis Farrakhan while I'm with Khalid Muhammad. You know, me being a son and a lover, a staunch supporter of Khalid, but a lover of Farrakhan. Khalid Muhammad being a direct son of Farrakhan, but at times being disappointed or angry with Farrakhan. So there's a backline story to a back and forth with me and him over it. And then after Khalid Muhammad passes, you know, I had points and times where I worked with Minister Louis Farrakhan heavily.
Yes, sir.
You know, for the millions more movement and so forth. I was even attacked for working with Minister Louis Farrakhan by some in the nationalist community.
Yes, sir.
You know, now I have to write a book on the man that I'm duty bound to write his book and to publish for, and duty bound to tell his story. But then, you know, it's like I have to just, you know, like, for example, Wesley Muhammad went to about a year or so ago, he went to the rostrum of the Nation of Islam on a webcast, and he publicly attacked me and Khalid Muhammad over a Facebook post, which was like an excerpt from the draft of my book, or basically just attacked me on the subject matter for my repeating my version of history, you know, which is a painful version for me, but it's history. He's supposed to be a historian, you know. So anyway, it's like, you know, it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to handle it myself. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to handle it myself. It's like, I love Minister Louis Farrakhan. I mean, I really do, but I got to write a book on Khalid Abdul Muhammad, and sometimes it's not always a pretty picture, you know? And so, you know, this is like a path and a journey I'm walking. But I can tell you one thing. To maybe take another question.
Yes, sir.
As I write this book, there is no malice in my heart. As I write this book on Khalid Muhammad, there's no like a agenda. I'm not trying to show nobody up. I'm not trying to do anything that's other than righteous.
Yes, sir.
And to tell my brother's history and to try to tell even the painful parts of it. And I think that I'm telling it in a way that's objective enough that you will get something out of it, even if you're a hardcore follower, super hardcore follower of Louis Farrakhan. I mean, one of them followers that say Louis Farrakhan is Jesus Christ, the Messiah, Allah in person.
Yes,
you know, there's some out there that hold that line. Even them, this is still something to study in this story, because Minister Louis Farrakhan's story is a story of divinity and humanity. So inside of the Khalid Muhammad story, you're also getting here part of the biography, a glimpse of the biography of Minister Louis Farrakhan. Absolutely. And the things that he had to deal with, and his ups and downs upon his divine journey as a leader. And so I try to be even objective. I mean, because every supervisor wants his employees to carry out their wishes. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Every commanding military officer expects loyalty and obedience from his soldiers, no matter which way he turning. Is that right?
That's right.
You know, I'm no dummy. I recognize that too. So there's two sides to this. I'm strongly for Khalid Muhammad based on good reason, but I also, you know, understand that, you know, Minister Louis Farrakhan as a leader and as a man trying to do great things that he did with the Million Man March and others, had to do things that maybe, and do things, say things, teach things that Muhammad didn't understand, and certainly I didn't understand. But hell, how are we to argue with a man that puts 2 million black men on the mall in Washington?
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I mean?
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, I say things like that in my book. You know what I mean? I mean, this thing is it's just no one single way to look at it. But I say it will be a source of great learning and development by anybody who reads and studies it, because right now that's what it is for me.
Wonderful, and I look forward to reading and understanding it. I just have 3 more questions, if you would.
Yeah.
One question my brother Rashad asked me. He said, could you ask him about about Dr. Khaled's children and your relationship with them? Are they supporting you in your efforts to keep their father's legacy alive?
I would say I have their general I have their general support. Their general support. You know, and I don't Khalid Muhammad has brilliant son, Farah Gray, who's Farrakhan Khalid Muhammad in my book. And he's that 9-year-old that's with Khalid Muhammad and doing security and doing his dad's toughest times. And he's part of that personal care and touch that Khalid Muhammad showed to his son. And you know, he's part of that, part of this story. And he's gone on to kind of live life in his own way.
Yes, sir.
So I know I have their general support, but I don't put a lot of pressure on them to be like, I don't put a lot of pressure on them to try to get heavily involved right now in the whole Khalid Muhammad thing. You know what I mean? Because every person got to proceed on their own path. You know, I choose to be his national spokesman. I choose to be his chairman after he passes. I choose to lift up his name. I choose to, you know, whether he's criticized or not, or I'm marked for life, called an anti-Semite or racist and all that. I've chosen my path to be marked for life and be marked with him for life. That's my voluntary path. Everybody ain't into that. So I accept whatever support they give me, you know, and whatever support they give me, I accept it, and I support them because that's what Khalid Muhammad would want me to do.
Yes, sir. And thank you for keeping his legacy alive, because he's an inspiration to many people, but especially I think there's a huge amount. That's why I wanted to have the conversation, the interview with you. A huge amount of believers in the Nation of Islam who love the Most High Farrakhan and believe that we see him through scriptures and still love Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad for his great work and his commitment to liberation of our people, as you as well. This is my next question. I attended an event where it was in a celebration in Atlanta where you were stepping aside from being the head of the Black Panther, National Black, I don't know what the exact title was, but you were stepping down and you were moving forward in your law career. How did that feel to make an adjustment in your focus, and what was the circumstances behind that?
I appreciate your question. You know, I served for 13 years as the chairman of the new Black Panther Party, unexpectedly, because Khalid Muhammad passing was totally unexpected. But out of love for his mission, his legacy, and for the brothers and sisters in the party, and to make sure that the new Black Panther Party was not destroyed, I took up the mantle of the chairman and took it up strong for many years. And in the many years, I reduced my practice of law greatly to carry out the mission, you know, to carry out that strong revolutionary mission. And the organization got to a point where it could stand as an institution and support new leadership. And therefore I can fight broader in the fields that I need to continue to fight on. I mean, I am an activist. To me, one of the strongest, by God's grace, of my era.
Yes, sir.
Activist. But that's not all I am.
Yes, sir.
And our fight is an important fight in the legal field, in the courtroom, and in other areas.
Yes, sir.
So I just say that it feels good to know that the new Black Panther Party, through Chairman Hashim Nzinga, Imam Akbar, the brothers and sisters, are fighting all over the country, even in other formations that they're fighting. And I'm still a part of that movement. And right now, I'm still kind of growing and developing where God or Allah takes me next, you know. I'm right now establishing authorship along with my attorneyship. I'm into my authorship, and that's the contribution that is being revealed to me that I'm to make to the movement right now. That I am to write these histories, and these histories are being very important to our people. And then God is going to reveal next what I do. But so I'm kind of like low key right now. I'm just studying all the time. I'm reading all the time. You know, and my practice of law is not a practice of law is about motions and back in courtrooms, and there's not a lot of fanfare to it. Ain't a lot of speaking to it. So I would say honestly, yeah, it really is. And I'm in a period of self-development, self-growth. I'm not out here trying to be the leader of anything. I'm kind of like a free agent, and I just want to give up these books to our people, and to continue to develop myself to see what Allah has next.
Yes, sir. I have one more question. Do you have time for it, sir?
One last question, and then I'm going to come back on. I'll schedule with you to come back on one more time.
Yes, sir. I thank you.
One more time only, and then I think I'm going to go out, and then I don't think I'm going to speak any more about this book, but I'll do it one more time only with you because I appreciate your spirit.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, I just want to say, speaking of your authorship, I have written 2 books. My second book is on Amazon. Cleopatra is a children's book. Thank you all for watching. My sister Miriam has a #1 selling book on Amazon, ABC, I Love Me for Your Children, to make them feel good about self-esteem while teaching them the alphabet as well. Brother Malik, I just want to read these comments before I ask the questions, because you have a lot of positive comments from people all everywhere, just who are listening and watching as well. Thank you, Brother Malik.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. You've always stood by Brother Khalid. Thank you for standing strong. Thank you, Brother LaRon, Rizzy Music. Thank you, Naima, my sister, Brother Robin. Everybody just saying peace, brother. Thank you for standing up. Brother Eric Ahad Muhammad from Phoenix, Arizona. He's from Los Angeles. He said, I was there and secured Khalid Abdul Muhammad the night that he was shot. And afterwards in Riverside in the hospital, Brother Malik, you are a brother and a scholar. Thank you for what you have shared. I am always a seeker of straight words. I would say this: the minister told us to secure Khalid that day after the shooting, and I talked with him because I was assigned to the hospital room. So he said he secured Dr. Khalid at the hospital. He's saying, thank you, Brother Jihad. Thank you all for your kind words, and we look forward. I will give you all a date once I speak with Brother Malik off air about part 2. Brother Malik, I have to ask you this question because I am how you are about the history of Dr. Khalid is how I am about the history of my father and the work that he did in Washington, D.C. with the Dope Busters. And when I was doing security for him at the event, the Black Panther event, I heard you speak about the you bringing the Mossad Minslow's Farrakhan to Howard and the climate of D.C. and the crime, and the crime going down and all of that, with you being a college student. Could you please share light into that, the Dope Busters, and how that affected D.C. at the time period that you were there?
Yeah, and I recognize this in the book also, that the work of former Supreme Captain Sharif Muhammad, and who at that time was Captain William Muhammad, is legendary, is absolutely legendary in Washington, D.C., and groundbreaking. And I had the personal chance to work with him and bringing Minister Louis Farrakhan to Washington, D.C., and he's a veteran of many strong campaigns in Washington, D.C. for Farrakhan, through Marion Barry and Convention Center and many major campaigns. So I got nothing but a lot of respect for him. And what was specifically did you ask?
Yes, sir. I said the Dope Busters during that time period while you were on college and you're bringing the minister to
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, they were legendary. They were legendary. The work of the dope, all of them, Brother Darrell Muhammad, Captain Timothy, Dr. Abdul Alim Muhammad, right here in Washington, D.C. A lot of my book focuses on where I lived also in Washington, D.C. So you get good commentary on William Muhammad and other times. You are his son, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're his son. Okay, so great. So he's a legend in this town. You know what I mean? I also remember when he wasn't so happy with me. One time he rolled up on me with a. Was it all right to say this?
Of course, of course.
Okay, so one time we was going through a little something before the Million Man March, and Khalid Muhammad had said something he didn't like, and it was some controversy with Sister Kathy Hughes. I talk about it in the book. But he rolled up on me outside a Scripture Cathedral with about 30 FOI, and was getting on me about something. So I got nothing but respect for him over the years. He's a staunch follower and supporter of Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan. He's a brilliant economist, economic man, as I write in the book. He's always hustling and putting something together, and he had his back and forth. He had his times when Khalid Muhammad put tension in his life, you know, and so forth. And he put some tension on my back one day. So, I mean, it's just real talk. But I can honestly say that I love him. Like I saw him a few years ago at the event. I love him and respect him, and we got a good history together. And certainly, I speak positively of him and the Dope Busters. Ain't no doubt about it.
Wonderful, sir. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and thank you, Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz. You don't understand how much your representation inspires many people, especially young people, but many people all over the country. And you going and focusing on law, that's inspirational to us, because we need more scholars and more people in the court. Like you said, activists on the groups, boots on the ground, but as well as in the courtroom. So I thank you very much for taking time out of your
Get that degree.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
I want to say this before I go to all those who are listening. That we need you to go and get the degree or the trade that you need to help our people. It could be a trade. It could be carpentry. It could be anything. It could be any building skill. But certainly, if you can go and get that degree and become that doctor, that lawyer, and match that with what you learn from Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan, certainly it will help you in this world's life. I can tell you in a million different ways how much Islam is needed in the higher fields of life. Some of them that I'm in: real estate, human services, law, the courtroom, the fight for justice. Everything you learn from Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan, as Khalid Muhammad taught me, take every piece of knowledge or degree that the devil can give out, and I'm sure that your life will be better. I'll talk back with you, brother. Love you and respect you, and we'll see what happens, okay?
And I love you more. And thank you, sir. All right, peace. Yes, sir.
All right, respect. All right, thank you.